Hello and welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. The first hosepipe ban in 27 years as the region's reservoirs look depleted. We speak to the director of Yorkshire Water.
We know that Yorkshire customers responded very well to our last pleas, and we hope that in this new request to put in a hosepipe ban, which is part of our drought management plan, that customers will respond, and that will help us preserve stocks and get us into the winter.
We'll explain how the hosepipe ban affects you. Also tonight, we hear how the driest part of our region, South Yorkshire, is coping with the drought.
And I'll be live here at Ecup Reservoir outside Leeds. This reservoir was full back in March and it's now at less than 50% capacity. I'll be back throughout the programme with more analysis and, of course, that all-important forecast.
A picture's worth 1,000 words. Artwork telling the story of our sporting past is unveiled in Leeds. The results have been checked and verified. Leeds and Sheffield have made the shortlist for hosting next year's Eurovision Song Contest. Good evening and thank you for joining us. For the first time in 27 years, a hosepipe ban has been announced for our region. After weeks of high temperatures and low rainfall, Yorkshire Water is the latest water company to limit use in response to depleted resources. So let's take a look at what it means for you. Well, the ban will come into effect in 2 weeks' time, and for domestic users, it will mean an end to watering the garden and plants, cleaning vehicles or boats, and cleaning paths and patios with a hosepipe. Filling or maintaining hot tubs, swimming pools and paddling pools will also be banned, as will cleaning windows and walls of domestic premises with a hosepipe. Anyone flouting the ban faces a fine of up to £1,000. Well, Paul is live at Ecup Reservoir for us now. Paul.
Well, thanks, Amanda. I walk my dog round here in North Leeds most mornings. Back in March, this was full and it's now less than 50% capacity. That's a dramatic fall in just 5 months. The main reason, it's been very dry, hasn't it? It's been the driest start to the year on average since 1976. And so far this summer, with 3 weeks left, we've had less than a quarter of expected rainfall. Now, the last time these reservoirs were at these levels in August was back during that infamous drought of 1995. Now, you remember they were tankering water in from Kielder Reservoir in a desperate attempt to keep water in these reservoirs. Now, that's not expected this time, but hence the seriousness of the situation, and that's why Yorkshire Water have imposed this hosepipe ban. Just a bit of context, Yorkshire Water are actually not that worried about this summer. Their focus is next summer, because climate records show that these droughts can often last on an 18-month cycle. If you think back to the drought of 76, where we had standpipes in the streets, the seeds for that were sown in the summer of 1975, and then the autumn and winter rains failed, and that's why we had a serious situation in summer of 76, and that is what concerns Yorkshire Water most of all. Anyway, we need to speak to them, don't we? That's what I did earlier today. Well, Neil, reservoirs like this were full in March. How have we got to where we're at?
Well, Paul, we spoke in July and we said then it had been an incredibly dry spring and it was looking like a very dry summer. Since then, we've seen a heat wave which has set all new records, and that's happened in Yorkshire as well as across the country. And we've seen that continue over the last few weeks to the point where we are now, which is just below 50% in the reservoirs.
Do hosepipe bans actually make a difference?
Well, we have seen other companies in the south have brought hosepipe bans in, and we have seen that 10% reductions in their demand. So we know that Yorkshire customers have responded very well to our last pleas, and we hope that in this new request to put in a hosepipe ban, which is part of our drought management plan, that customers will respond, and that will help us preserve stocks and get us into the winter, when we'll hopefully then see a good recharge and we can start to then lift the hosepipe ban as soon as we see some significant rainfall.
Now, many viewers say that we shouldn't be in this situation because you should have spent more money on sorting out leaks. What would you say to them?
Well, we've been achieving our leakage target for the last 2 years. This year we're on target to achieve our leakage target. Over the last 10 years, we've spent £500 million, and we're at the forefront of some leakage technology, including satellites. At the moment, we've got additional gangs on working 24/7. We're fixing around 200 leaks a week at the moment, trying to get all visible leaks done within 48 hours. But of course, customers will still see some leaks, and we're prioritising those and getting around to them as fast as we can.
By your own admission, you've spent a lot of money fixing leaks, and yet we still find ourselves with a reservoir that's the same level as back in that drought of 95. Isn't it the fact that you've just not spent enough money on new reservoirs and building new capacity, because the population has grown enormously since 95?
Well, you're right to say that the population has grown in that time, and that's what has increased demand. And every 5 years we produce a water resource management plan that balances that supply and demand.
Water's an expensive business, but shouldn't Yorkshire Water be paying less money to shareholders and pumping more money into storage facilities like this?
Well, over the last 5 years we haven't paid any dividends to shareholders. In fact, they've reinvested money into the business, in some of the investment in leakage and in building infrastructure around the county.
Following the drought of 95, Yorkshire Water started building a pipeline which would have brought water from outside of the Yorkshire region. Could you finish that? Is that a potential solution?
It's one of the options within our water resource management plan. There are a number of things that come up. We've just put in a submission with Severn Trent Water looking at transfers of water between our two companies, and we keep all of those options open. In the past, the options that have come up as being the most economic are continuing to manage demand side, ask our customers to manage their consumption, for us to manage our leakage, which we're doing continually. But as we move into the future and we see climate change occurring and extremes occurring, it may well be that we have to bring those options into play.
What happens if it doesn't rain this autumn and winter?
That's exactly why we're asking now for customers to take action. When we look at our model, and we have to model forward, we don't know and can't be certain that it will rain. So that's why we take action now. That allows us then to apply for drought permits and drought orders, which mean we can reduce some compensation flows from reservoirs. It means we can abstract more water from rivers during the winter, and that will all allow us to sustain water supply into next year. But also help the recovery. And when we see some rainfall, that will just speed up the process and will enable us to lift the hosepipe ban more quickly.
Well, that was Neil Dewis talking to me earlier from Yorkshire Water. Now, interestingly, today they've announced a full-blown drought across part of the Midlands and Lincolnshire. So just how bad is the situation here in Yorkshire? I spoke to the Environment Agency earlier this afternoon.
So following, prolonged dry weather, lack of rainfall, lowering river levels and lowering levels in reservoirs, we are starting to see that increase in environmental incidents such as fish kills and increased pollution incidents, which is a concern. So we are taking action. The Environment Agency has been granted permission to issue a drought order today. This is for Holmesdithe Reservoir. And this is to reduce flows coming out of the reservoir to prevent it from drying out. We are not expecting any significant rainfall in the short term. We are monitoring the situation in terms of whether we change the status to drought later in August.
Now, all parts of our region have suffered very low rainfall. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, parts of North and West Yorkshire did have a little bit of rain, hence it's greened up slightly. But actually, the worst part of our region for lack of rainfall is South Yorkshire. Parts of it are like a dust bowl, and Ian White's been down there to take a look.
Our eye in the sky shows the effect the lack of rain is having on the fields around Barnsley. Brown and bone dry, desperate for a good old soaking from Mother Nature. 90-year-old Robert Barr has lived at Cinder Hill near Cawthorne since 1931. He says this spell of intense temperatures and lack of rain is quite something.
Heat wave? Well, I should say it's perhaps the hottest one I can remember. There was a heat wave in 1976, but I don't think it was just quite as hot as this one. I don't think the small streams dried up as much as they have done this year.
With 160 cattle to look after, they use a lot of water here.
We have to swill out after milking both morning and night. That takes 35 gallons. So you put that through. In the morning, we heat the water on the Economy 7 through the night, so it's boiling at 8 o'clock in the morning. At night, we swill it out with cold water.
Robert welcomes news of a hosepipe ban for Yorkshire.
If they don't impose a hosepipe ban and stop people wasting water, there'll be no water. I think they ought to really do is start building another dam, because they're building houses all over the place, but they don't put any infrastructure in to supply them.
Along the road at Horsefields Garden Centre in Silkstone, as a business, they're still allowed to use a hosepipe. In the baking heat, the plants are thirsty, but some are thriving.
Things like geraniums are thriving, basil is thriving, lavender, agapanthus, things that love sun and are sun lovers and sun worshippers, all the Mediterranean kind of things.
Emma can water her plants, but knows there'll be keen gardeners frustrated by a hosepipe ban.
We're a business, so we don't come under those hosepipe bans, so we'll be okay. However, it's very worrying for our customers. So I've got a few tips. So you could use grey water, which is a fantastic idea. Use that from your washing machine. You could take the pipe out the back and have it going outside or into a bucket. Move plants into the shade, which is a good idea because then they're not in beating sun. Or you could put up shade like we've got shading in the greenhouse around the garden like they do in the Mediterranean. You can use water retaining gel in pots, which aids water retention. So there are lots of little hints and tips that you can do to help.
People we spoke to today seem to accept a hosepipe ban was necessary.
I've got water butt and everything, so for garden and stuff, yeah, so we try and save water.
It doesn't bother us a lot.
We don't have grass, do we? We're all pebbles now.
We're paved and pebbles, so it doesn't have...
We use the watering can.
We use the watering can a lot, and we save water during the year.
I think it's needed. What else can you say? You've got to do what you've got to do, haven't you? It's definitely needed.
Hopefully it won't last long. Just pray for some rain, really.
Times like this make us all think carefully about how we use water. These fields just need a drink. Ian White, BBC Look North, Barnsley.
Well, that's Ian White in the Dust Bowl that is currently at South Yorkshire. Now, do you know the question that's exploded on social media today? How is this hosepipe ban enforceable? Well, actually, if you get caught, it's £1,000 fine. But would you snitch on your neighbour? Well, Jenny Els has been to meet the good people of Sheffield to find out.
I'm not sure I would. That's a bit dicey. But I think everybody knows what to do, actually, because at the end of the day, there's no point wasting water when you you necessarily don't have to use it.
Well, I'd have a word with them first and then see if it changes. But if we have to conserve water, then I have to do it. Everybody else should have to do it.
No, I think if I was saving it and we got to that point that, yes, I might do. Depends what the circumstances were, I think.
Would you ever snitch on a neighbour if you saw them using a hosepipe when they weren't supposed to?
No, probably not, because I like my neighbours. Yeah, same.
I love that, but joking aside, this is a serious situation. The other question on everybody's lips is one I'm just going to ask a friend of mine from Leeds University. Professor John Marsham is a climate change expert, so I'll lead with the main question of the day. Is this down to climate change?
Yeah, this is absolutely consistent with what we expect from climate change. Climate change increases heat waves, but also droughts and floods. And although the lack of rainfall, as you say, it hasn't been completely unprecedented generally, we have seen absolutely unprecedented temperatures, and those high temperatures, of course, make the impact of the lack of rainfall worse.
Fast forward to 2050. It's only 2022. We're expecting global temperatures to rise, even if we get carbon emissions under control. Paint a picture of what our climate is going to look like then.
Well, now, as you say, we can only bring emissions down so far, so we're committed to more warming. And, I mean, analysis of this event's gone going, but we know, for example, the summer of 2018 could be pretty much a normal year by 2050. So we have to prepare for events like this, and in fact, events far worse than this.
You know, one of the interesting things is last month we smashed that heat record, didn't we, by 5 degrees. Now, over in Canada, they did the same last summer. And there are many climate scientists, maybe off the record, that say that they're alarmed that the climate seems to be changing more quickly than they thought. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it is alarming. We're seeing records falling all over the world now on a regular basis, and there is some evidence that things could be changing faster than expected. But I think, you know, even if that's not the case, it's quite, you know, different when you see these things, even when you've been predicting them scientifically for years. And what's really struck me is just how widespread the impacts are. I mean, we've talked about hosepipe bans, but earlier in the programme you were talking about agriculture. The fire services compared this with World War II in the south. And what people often don't appreciate is the impact on nature. I mean, we can retreat inside with a cold beer maybe, but nature can't do that. And things like the unique ecosystems of the South Downs and the chalk streams are really vulnerable. And people don't realise, how many species we stand to lose from climate change.
I mean, I think people find it difficult to get their heads round. Well, we're only 1.15 degrees above pre-industrial temperature levels. But it's a lot from a global perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely. 1 degree doesn't sound much, 24, 25 degrees, what's the difference? But even a 1 degree change makes a massive difference in how frequently we get hot extremes, droughts and floods.
So quickly, can we get to net zero by 2050? Can we keep global temperatures below 1.5 degrees, or have we had it?
We haven't had it, and it's never too late to act, but the sooner we act, the better. 2050 is 28 years ago, but really we need to act now. We need to halve emissions in the next 10 years and then reach net zero by 2050 to meet that 1.5 degree limit of the Paris Agreement. And if we don't do that, it really ramps up the chances of irreversible and catastrophic changes.
Well, Professor John Marsham, thank you so much for joining us from Leeds University. Certainly food for thought there. There's a lot to get our heads round, and certainly Yorkshire Water have got a lot to get their heads round. I'll be back with the answer to this question. Will it rain in the near future? So don't miss my forecast. That'll be coming up shortly.
We won't. Thank you very much, Paul. Yeah, testing times. And we will, of course, continue to monitor the dry weather in our region over the next few weeks and over the course of the hosepipe ban. Meanwhile, as if any further evidence of the dry weather were needed, more than 50 homes have been evacuated due to a fire in Cresswell village in North Derbyshire. 12 fire crews are tackling the blaze, which started in some fields and spread to a neighbouring farm. Derbyshire Police say a rest centre has been set up in the Cresswell Event Centre. Several roads in the area are closed, and we'll bring you more of this on our late bulletin tonight. Elsewhere, a large fire has broken in the Ferrybridge area. Smoke could be seen from the M62. It appears to have broken out in a field. Now, if you've been around the city of Leeds recently, your attention might have been caught by one of the many giant murals showing the face of local sporting legends. Well, there's more where they came from. Today, a tribute to Leeds United's Wembley winners of 50 years ago has been unveiled. Paul Ogden reports.
Take on McNabb on the outside, he's round the back. Clock! 1-0!
This is the man who headed the ball over the line.
If Leeds United fans ever need a reminder of what their FA Cup winning team from 50 years ago was made of, there's now a permanent point of reference in the form of a mural at their home stadium, Ellen Road, presented here today by sports artist Paul Trevelyan.
Eddie Gray could play on snow, not leave footprints. Only needed the space he was standing in to beat the player.
It's the latest in a growing collection of usually large works depicting the city's recognisable sporting heroes. From rugby legends Rob Burrow and Kevin Sinfield to the head coach who once led Leeds United back to the Premier League, Marcelo Bielsa, the gallery of Don Revie's 1972 FA Cup winners represents yet another long labour of Leeds love, expressed by, amongst others, today's creator, Nicholas Dixon.
The first one that I did was the Bielsa the Redeemer, and that was, it was literally when Leeds got promoted. As soon as that happened, I went and painted that, and the reaction from that was incredible.
It makes us feel great because wherever you go and you see your mural and think, wow. You know what I mean? So people still appreciate you, and you'll never ever leave Leeds United. I will never leave Leeds, never.
Folk of all generations who support Leeds United still refer back to this team. Why, even now?
Because they're what put Leeds United on the map. They took pride in playing for the club. They would die for the club, and it's because of this team that we're the Leeds fans we are today.
Thanks to today's unveiling, Leeds United fans need not wait until their next home match against Chelsea to view the class of 72 on a wall. But don't be surprised if another homage to Leeds sport has popped up somewhere else in the meantime.
Watch this space.
Paul Ogden, BBC Look North.
Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? Now, brace yourselves. Sheffield and Leeds have made it onto the shortlist to host Eurovision next year. The famous song contest is coming to the UK instead of Ukraine, which should be hosting after winning this year's competition. However, the war has made it too dangerous, and as the UK came second and offered to host, it will be coming here in 2023. But will it end up in Yorkshire? Let's hope so. Here's Kathy Killick.
Birmingham, Glasgow, Leeds.
We've all been waiting for this announcement. One Yorkshire city's through. What about another? Do we have a duet?
And Sheffield.
Yes, we do. Get out your sequins. Eurovision could be coming to Yorkshire. So, Leeds or Sheffield? Which one? We asked the city's head honchos for a 20-second pitch.
We know that Sheffield can put on a great show. We've held major international events for many years. We're working with our local partners, other local authorities, to put in a fantastic bid to hold Eurovision. But we must always remember that ideally it should have been in Ukraine. So whatever we do, it has to reflect on them.
So we were absolutely thrilled that Leeds has been shortlisted to host Ukraine's Eurovision next year. Leeds and West Yorkshire is home to one of the largest Ukrainian populations in the UK. So it's absolutely right that we celebrate Ukraine's Eurovision here. And not only that, it's going to be Leeds 2023, our year of culture. So it would be great to have Eurovision as a centrepiece of that.
The bookies put Sheffield at 26-1, the longest odds, sadly, but Sheffielders still have their fingers crossed.
It's Eurovision. Eurovision, man. We are going to be on telly. Oh my days! We can't wait. Fingers crossed. Go on, Eurovision!
I think it'd be great. Bring investment, people be excited. Also, it's good that we're supporting Ukraine in that sense. I just think it would be good for the wider community.
For something like that to actually happen in this city, I think it'd be fantastic. Purely and simply because Sheffield is a musical city.
Leeds' odds at this stage of the game are a little better at 10-1, but both bids will need a lot of public enthusiasm.
My mum is absolutely buzzing for it. She won't stop going on about it. She can't wait, and yeah, it'll be quite good, cool.
Fabulous. We've got the facilities, it will bring some cash into Leeds. It can do nothing but good, really.
Superb.
It would be good to get that sort of spotlight on the city, 100%, definitely.
So, how do the city's venues shape up? In Leeds, the First Direct Arena holds over 13,700 people. Sir Elton John, Prince and Miley Cyrus have all taken to the stage there, and they've played host to the Sports Personality of the Year and the X Factor. Over in Sheffield, the Utilita Arena can hold up to 13,600 people. Oasis played their first ever gig there in 1995, and they've hosted the likes of Tina Turner and Arctic Monkeys. The arena is also home to the Steelers ice hockey team. The contest was last in Yorkshire in 1982 in Harrogate. Will we play host again? Juries, we're waiting for your scores. Kathy Killick, BBC Look North.
Yeah, and of course we know with Eurovision anything can happen, so fingers crossed for one of our cities being successful. Now, the one benefit of not having any cloud cover, did you see the supermoon overnight? Let's take a look at some pictures, an incredible sight, and thanks for all your photos of it. These are from some of our weather watchers. Look at that, it's absolutely amazing, isn't it? It happens when the moon is closest to the Earth during its orbit, and it's the last supermoon of 2022, and I missed it, unfortunately. So on to the weather now. Let's take a look at it with Paul.
Well, thanks very much. You know what, Amanda, I'm a bit gutted that we're here because people who don't know Eckert Reservoir can now see how beautiful it is, and I feel as though it's my hidden secret, but anyway, there we are. I'll be back in the morning walking my dog, and it's a beautiful evening. A bit of breeze has come up in the last hour or two. Temperatures have reached 32 degrees, more of that over the weekend if you like the hot stuff, but a big change next week to more unsettled and cooler conditions. Anyway, let's get on with that sequence. We start with the pressure sequence. Not much to say, but if you notice a bit of a bulge from the south, that's pressure falling, and that will continue. So by Monday and Tuesday of next week, there are likely to be thunderstorms. Potentially, there could be a little bit of flash flooding, but very hit and miss. The main thing is it's going to turn cooler. So tonight, a very straightforward forecast as ever. It's dry and clear. Later, we may well see some mist and low cloud developing, and we'll see lowest temperatures around 13 or 14 degrees. So Saturday, don't be surprised if it's a bit of a grey start with some mist and low cloud, but that will rapidly burn off, and then it's another dry, hot and sunny day to come right across Yorkshire and the North Midlands into Nottinghamshire, and we're looking at temperatures again around 32 degrees, which is 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Similar on Sunday, but next week does turn more unsettled. Risk of thunderstorms, and it does turn cooler by midweek. Amanda, back to you from glorious Eccles.
Paul, thank you, and I might join you for that dog walk. That's it from us. Do have a lovely evening. We'll be back with the latest news and weather after 10 o'clock, but from all the team here, goodbye.